Member for Tunapuna.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I will begin where I left off when we would have suspended for tea. And I was just at the point of cut, you know. Right, yes, so Madam Speaker, to cut a long story short, after tea, right, a meeting was brokered between the Quora Valley Village Council and NGO, the Digicel Foundation, for an extraordinary project in the community, which we call EPIC, which is a community project funded by the Digicel Foundation, where we came up with the bright idea of building a storage tank facility consisting of 10 1,000 gallons water tank in the Tumbason area on a WASA facility that already existed, but we needed to ensure that the facility was ideally prepared based on the EMA regulations and based on the safety regulations with regards to WASA and the Tunapuna Piak Regional Corporation who were involved. It's ideal, it turned out to be an ideal public-private partnership between a lot of stakeholders within the Tunapuna constituency. And in the end, the area of Tumbason now has a water supply consisting of 10,000 gallons of water during the dry season, and it will be on a continuous basis as they continue along. But during the whole process, you know, it was, as the Member of Parliament for the area of Quora, you know, it was nice to see all the constituents coming out, all the business being part of it, all the businesses we approached for assistance in order to clear the area, backhoes, excavators and everything. You know, they were able to participate. The hardwares were able to supply materials at discounted prices. And we were also even able to go back to Digicel seeking additional funding in order for the project to be completed. And today the Quora Valley, Tumbason area to be exact, you know, is really grateful, you know, for the efforts of the Digicel Foundation, the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation, who provided all the construction skills and labor in order to ensure that the job came to completion. We had the engineers and technical skills of the Water and Sewage Authority in order to ensure that we had the proper gradient, the proper leverage, and everything else in order to ensure that the tanks would be filled, as again, it's being filled from a natural tributary coming out of the Quora River. Individuals like the chairman, Councillor Paul Leacock of the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation, the councillor for the area of Quora, Paradise, Tacarigua, where the Quora area falls within, were very instrumental in ensuring that the project came to fruition. So it was officially opened in September 2017, and we must extend sincere thanks to the Digicel Foundation for that particular project. Madam Speaker, it would be remiss of me if on behalf of the constituents of Tunapuna and the Quora Valley Village Council, if I did not extend gratitude to the Digicel Foundation for all the funding, WASA, the Water and Sewage Authority, the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation, my Tunapuna constituents, business enterprises within the Tunapuna constituency, and of course my Tunapuna office staff for both the theoretical and practical technical skills that they would have had to play, and for the generous contribution to the successful completion of the Digicel Foundation EPIC Community Project, public-private partnership at its best, Madam Speaker. Another public-private partnership that we'll hear a lot of, that only recently has been put on the table again, coming out of the Tunapuna constituency, is the MIC Institute of Technology and the MaconTrader.com construction company that is due to come on stream, another public-private partnership that will be coming on stream, where individuals, again, coming out of graduates of the MIC Institute would be set up on a database in order to be given first preference with regards to being hired within the construction industry. But we'll hear more of that during the course of the time, Madam Speaker. The parties involved in this project are presently engaged in documenting all the lessons learned from this community project at Quora. We in Tunapuna are leading the way with the Prime Minister's call for public-private partnerships within the constituency. Madam Speaker, there are other areas of the constituency where there is need for similar or variant projects. As a matter of fact, currently within the Wharf Trace, Maracas area, the Akono village, also in Maracas, where residents who live on hilly areas or inclined areas, again, where water are not easily accessible, we are looking at similar arrangements with other business entities, again, along the way of the public-private partnership to ensure that household pipe-borne water can be transmitted to these residents. Madam Speaker, staying within the Quora area for the moment, many of us may or may be aware of the long-heralded Quora Recreational Park Development Plan. Previous MPs of Tunapuna were privy to this particular plan, and now that under my stewardship, I'm looking to see how far this particular plan can be developed. So I'm working along very closely with the Minister of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, and also the Ministry of Tourism in order to get some headway with regards to this plan. During the last fiscal year, 2017, the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries completed the payment of the consultants for the plans and indicated a desire to initiate the next phase of this project. This is an interesting development, Madam Speaker. This project represents an abundant supply of possibilities that can lend itself to the development by the public-private partnerships. It is the seed for the development of a myriad of ecotourism development apart from sustainable community environmental development, particularly of a major national watershed and water source, which includes the famous Poolside 1 and Poolside 2 in the Quora Valley. It is said that on a monthly basis, over 30,000 residents of Trinidad visit the Quora Valley. You know, there's a Monday. You would be surprised that it's a weekend. On a Monday in the Quora Valley, a lot of individuals go up into the Quora Valley, visit Poolside 1, visit Poolside 2, and, you know, but again, as the Member of Parliament and working along with the two ministries, we are trying to see how best we can develop it in order to be part of the whole sustainable growth and development along the area of diversification, Madam Speaker. The Quora Recreational Park represents sustainable, high-quality employment opportunities and improved health protection for part of Tunapuna residents' population and present and potential visitors to the area. Madam Speaker, this administration has signaled its recognition of the area's potential not only by the actions vis-à-vis the Quora Recreation Park Development Plan, but as well as the recent round of consultations with regard to the development of a community tourism policy hosted by the Ministry of Tourism. Madam Speaker, the cry in the tongue is the need for foreign exchange. Foreign exchange can be gained by generating exports and or reducing imports or avoiding the use of foreign products. Madam Speaker, the development of the Quora Recreational Park Development Plan as the nexus for ecotourism in the Northern Range would serve to reduce the leakage by vacationing nationals while simultaneously providing international standard facility and security for visitors, nationals, and internationals to engage in the famous river line, or as my colleague would have mentioned, duck line. This experience will cater for trail hiking, bird watching, bicycle access to the particular areas, among other social activities in the scenic and tranquil Quora Valley. In the Quora Valley, we are recognizing the need to change the paradigm as we, with specific reference to our appetite for foreign goods and food. The government, or our government, has also allocated TT $20 million in fiscal 2018 for the establishment of an agricultural financial support program with grants to new and existing farmers of up to TT $100,000. The financial support will complement the already existing myriad number of agricultural incentives, which includes exemption from income tax for approved agricultural holdings, tax concessions on vehicles, equipment, raw material, and other inputs, subsidized loan programs, purpose-built markets, planting materials, access roads, and state land leases. Madam Speaker, the Quora Valley once contributed vastly to the agricultural food basket of Trinidad and Tobago. The Quora Valley farmers can now access these great opportunities to revive their farming exploits on larger scales. Benefits for all in the 2018 budget. Well done, Finance Minister. Madam Speaker, the 2018 budget proposal offers incentives for the development of business in general. The fastest growing sector in world trade is service delivery. Madam Speaker, 2 years ago, on my entry to this House, I have always stressed the great importance of high-value intellectual capacity potential in the area's resident population and the need to mobilize and utilize same. Our human resource continue to be our main asset. The introduction and success of the Ministry of Education GATE program has reduced the situation and created such issues as a reduction in traditional employment opportunities for graduates, underemployment, frustration, and low productivity, among other things. On the other hand, Madam Speaker, the 2018 budget proposal provides opportunities and incentives for all employable and or entrepreneurially minded residents of Tunapuna. You can be assured we intend to exploit those opportunities. Madam Speaker, these incentives include seed or startup capital, cash flow support, foreign exchange support, apart from planning and operating advisory services. The opportunity and support now exists for the development and engagement of our young and not so young professional and highly skilled personnel to engage in the provision of cross-border service delivery in areas such as training, consultancy, and hands-on services in varied industries throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, to the small businesses owners, our government has made a provision of TT $50 million to small businesses to assist with working capital and or seed capital through grant funding to the tune of TT $100,000 for every successful applicant. For every successful applicant, access to the tune of TT $100,000. I admonish our Greater Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce to explore all these new initiatives in the 2018 budget. Madam Speaker, my constituency of Tunapuna and the surrounding region has a population with a large demand for housing accommodation. Most members of Parliament can ascertain that on a daily basis or on a weekly basis when they meet with constituents, the highest percentage of individuals who visit our offices are for AGC housing, and the government, they want the government to provide the housing for them. As the Finance Minister mentioned, we cannot afford housing for each and every individual within Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, this administration has signaled the opening of the housing market and a transparent support and reward mechanism, together with some technical support and including the relaxation of tongue and country requirements stipulations. Madam Speaker, in Tunapuna, there are many skilled tradesmen and entrepreneurs who I am certain will avail themselves of any opportunities presented to new prospective housing developers, thus reducing the unemployment rate among the skilled, semi-skilled, and unskilled individuals. This may even provide an incentive to some persons currently employed with URP and CPEP programs, but once possessing the requisite skill sets. Madam Speaker, it is for the above reasons that our government has now allocated $50 million to provide as cash incentives for approximately 1,000 additional new private sector finance and constructing affordable homes. By incentivizing contractors, both big and small, and we already heard that individuals will be given the opportunity to submit applications. It will be advertised in order for individuals to make the necessary applications. Both big and small contractors, we will revive the construction industry, increase employment in the area, and simultaneously reduce government spending on the provision of our housing stock. Congratulations to the Minister of Housing and the Minister of Finance for these new initiatives for the construction and housing sectors. Tunapuna constituency is on board with these proposals. Madam Speaker, definitely the 2018 budget proposal offers a sustainable opportunity for and support for the short, medium, and long-term diversification of our economy. I have always alluded to the ability of the residents of the Tunapuna constituency to go beyond the boundary by the use of Lara-type controlled application and precise hitting and placement. A pressing issue for the residents of Tunapuna in particular, and those of the east-west corridor between the areas of Kurep and extending to Five Rivers and beyond. Residents living north of the Eastern Main Road is the traffic congestion experienced in maximum proportions. Madam Speaker. At any given time of the day within that portion of the east-west corridor, between Five Rivers, probably extending to Kurep, to Mount Hope, by the Mount Hope Hospital, there is a serious traffic congestion, especially during the peak hours of both mornings and afternoons. From El Dorado in Tunapuna to St. Augustine and Kurep and Mount Hope, From El Dorado in Tunapuna to St. Augustine and Kurep is the most densely populated area in Trinidad and Tobago for schools and educational institutions, including the University of the West Indies and, of course, the prestigious Hillview College, my alma mater. The University, Tunapuna, St. Augustine, and St. Joseph need to be expounded. Madam Speaker, residents of Tunapuna, in another demonstration of community willingness to engage in volunteerism or public-private partnerships, have offered their services in the formation of a traffic management committee and have undertaken studies that have identified specific problem areas in terms of impact. Madam Speaker, this team of qualified, skilled, and experienced volunteers in the relevant disciplines have already identified the highest priority and impacting areas and road user practices with possible solutions already. The area and possible solution of highest priority have already been submitted to the Minister of Works and Transport for review. Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to report the last communication from the Ministry has indicated that they are currently considering designs and cost estimates for the future of a traffic management plan within the Tunapuna constituency and surrounding communities. I must extend congratulations here again to the Minister of Works and Transport. Madam Speaker, in expressing our gratitude to those persons, we again are modeling an approach for solving community and by extension national problems by partnering and partnerships. Our Honorable Prime Minister have been, speaking much about, getting involved in private-public partnerships, and the government is open and willing to accept many of those private entrepreneurs to come on board. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, by our own actions, those of the previous administration, and the peculiarities of international economics, oil and gas revenues continue to be decreasing, we have found ourselves in the quarry of life between a rock and a hard place. However, Madam Speaker, we the people of Tunapuna are not prepared or willing to sit upon our laurels, cry and reminisce about yesterday and what have been or what should have been done. No, Madam Speaker, we are prepared and today signal our intent to carve our own statue of David from the block of marble presented by our Minister of Finance before us in the form of the economic circumstances and environment of our beloved Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, it's the intention of the constituents of Tunapuna to employ the chisel of community partnership in producing our own David masterpiece to rival all the naysayers before us, including those on the other side. Madam Speaker, as we move forward, I can only pray that those of us who have the opportunity to change the paradigm embrace this opportunity. For the very survival of Trinidad and Tobago depend on us now. The paradigm has to change if we are to survive, colleagues. To do otherwise is to invite persons to impose on us the medicine we should have applied ourselves. And I'll repeat that. The paradigm has to change if we in Trinidad and Tobago have to survive in 2018. To do otherwise is to invite persons to impose on us the medicine we should have applied for ourselves. At this time, Madam Speaker, I would just like to identify a couple of projects that would have taken place within my constituency during the period of 2017. Not much, and it may not be of big significance or large projects, but it would have been projects that would have left an indelible mark within the constituency. And this is how I look at it. Right? It's all for the people. In Mohammed Trace, we are presently in the completion exercise of a reconstruction of a roadway that was totally collapsed. Mohammed Trace is a street in St. Augustine, and it's now being reconstructed, the roadway with improved drainage infrastructure. We did the lighting of the Etihad football field, as would have been identified by the Minister of Sports during 2017. We also had the lighting of the Lower Quora Road basketball court. That's the El Dorado Village Council. That area there, Lower Quora Road, where the lighting of the basketball court transpired. We would have had the cleaning and the silting of the two main watercourses within the Tunapuna constituency, which would be the Quora River in Tacarigua by the St. Mary's Children's Home. That would have been the silted, and also the St. John River, which exits by Exodus Span Theatre in Tunapuna. We would have constructed a retaining wall and drainage base at the St. John Road River in the vicinity of the UWI residence apartments. Again, the apartments were being threatened, and and it's something that had to be done at the time in order to ensure to secure the land and also the apartments for the university students at St. John Road. We would have done the resurfacing or paving of the Maracas Royal Road between La Saiva Village to La Mango Village. Again, Maracas Royal Road is a very long stretch, and we met with the minister, and we would have identified the area of the Maracas Royal Road that needed paving or resurfacing critically. And we would have done the area between La Saiva, Wharf Trace, going down straight to La Mango Village by the St. Joseph by the St. Joseph Bridge. We would have had the opening of the Upper El Dorado Community Center, and I thank the Minister of Community Development and Culture for the opening of the Upper El Dorado Community Center, state-of-the-art facility that is heavily utilized, not only by the constituents, but by a lot of non-constituents. And we would have also had training programs set up by WAN with regards to computer classes that are taking place. We have cooking classes taking place, dancing taking place, weddings and various functions at this Upper El Dorado Community Center. We had drainage infrastructure improvement in Center Trace, La Saiva Village, Maracas. Again, all these drainage would have been, some of these works would have been completed by the Tunapuna Piaco Regional Corporation under the chairmanship of Councillor Paul Leacock. And I must at this time also mention the three hard-working TPRC councillors of the Tunapuna constituency. We have Mr. Councillor Sean Martin Gonzalez in the Maracas Santa Margarita area. We have Councillor Aaron Thomas in the Quora Paradise El Dorado area. And we have Councillor Travis Williams in the Orzenville Tunapuna area, who are hardworking and have contributed through their development programs at the regional corporations in order to ensure that some of these infrastructure improvement would have taken place within the constituency. So I must say hats off to those three councillors at the Tunapuna Piaco Regional Corporation. Amidst all the talk about gloom and doom on the other side, again, we in Tunapuna continue to make best with what we have. Cut and contrive. Right? We are able to make best with what we have in the Tunapuna constituency. We had the resurfacing of roadway paving of Bellevue Hill, Akono Road, Riverside Road in Crep. We had drainage improvement in the San Pedro Road in Akono, Anguaro Road, El Choro Road, all in the Maracas area. I must say at this time that the Maracas area is divided into two constituents. We have the St. Anne's East on the left-hand side when you enter in the Maracas Royal Road, and the Tunapuna constituency on the right-hand side. So the constituency is shared by the two members of parliament for St. Anne's East and the Tunapuna constituency, and we work in tandem to ensure that we cannot pave one side of the Maracas Royal Road. You're paving the road, we pave the whole road. We've seen about a landslip, left-hand side, right-hand side, we deal with the landslips as we continue to go along. We have a disaster management unit within the Tunapuna Piaco Regional Corporation that is doing excellent work under Supervisor Ms. Carol Charles, and they have been working round the clock, day and night, in order to ensure that landslips, landslide, and areas that would have been flooded out get some sort of assistance. We can also give thanks to the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission, TNTEC, for the hard work that they have been doing in the Tunapuna constituency. Again, members of parliament, I'm talking for my constituency. TNTEC lives up to an excellent reputation within the Tunapuna constituency. Right, and I must extend sincere thanks to the area distribution managers and the senior management at TNTEC for the work that they are doing within the Tunapuna constituency. You do your part, sir. You just have to do your part, MP. Do your part. Do your part. Sorry, Madam Speaker. Resurfacing of the San Gregorio Road in Maracas. We had retaining wall and drainage works in Wharf Trace, Maracas. Construction of box drain with pavement on Richard Street in Tacarigua, which is just alongside the St. Mary's Children's Home in Tacarigua. We had the pavement over box drain on Gittin Street in Tacarigua, just on the outskirts of the Paradise Gardens. We had box drain steps and railings at Noel Trace Extension number 1, which is off St. John Road in St. Augustine. Retaining wall and driveway at Mohammed Trace St. Augustine, which was a project completed by Self-Help. Self-Help Commission provided the funding, and the Unemployment Relief Program, URP, provided the labor and skill set in order to ensure that this retaining wall and driveway at Mohammed Trace was constructed. We had also the resurfacing of La Providencia Road in Maracas. We had a box drain also in Wharf Trace. And some of these projects, members and the listening public, were projects that were in situations whereby the various ministries, both Ministry of Works and also the Ministry of Local Government, had no choice but to ensure that these projects were entertained and were completed. So those are just some of the work that's going on within the Tunapuna constituency. We would have also done the refurbishment of the hockey center at the Tacarigua indoor facility, where we now have the racket center, which has been recently renamed. And then we would have also assisted in the funding of the Eddie Hart League for Football, which, as we know, is celebrating 50 years of existence. As you all know, Mr. Edward Eddie Hart would have been a former member of this chamber, and we would have done some funding for the last 2 years and also in 2018 in order to ensure that the league continue to run. And it's one of the biggest minor league, well, not necessarily, but the biggest minor league within the Eastern region. So, Madam Speaker, in closing, and in the words of my boyhood friend, Tunapuna constituency is pardoning by partnerships as against pardoning by the pocket. And the pocket here relates to the Ministry of Finance. So partnering by partnerships as against pardoning by the pocket only.
Your original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 10 more minutes if you wish to avail yourself of it.
I don't think I would need full as 10, Madam. We, however, live in faith and hope in the Almighty God. And, Madam Speaker, that better days are coming, and this too shall pass away. Madam Speaker, better days are coming, and this too shall pass away for the survival and the fortune of our beloved Trinidad and Tobago. And with those few words, Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to share in this.
Member for Miaro.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me the opportunity to join this proceeding as we debate this bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on the 30th day of September 2018. Madam Speaker, before I get into my presentation, I just want to address two comments that were made earlier today that I think we should really clear up. Madam Speaker, the member for Laventille West made a comment that none of us on this side, that we don't want anything that is good for Trinidad and Tobago. And I just want to tell the member that the only thing that we don't want from this side is Laventille West. Right, Madam Speaker? So he's not here, but I hope he gets the message. Laventille West. Madam Speaker, my colleague from Labray, she also mentioned that she was a bit disturbed that there were about 12% of children that were failing in the education system because of the UNC and their failed education program. But, Madam Speaker, I want to apologize on behalf of the UNC, but I want to congratulate the member for Separia for the 88% that are very successful in the education system in this country, Madam Speaker. I also want to congratulate the member for Separia for leading the charge that have 66% of our students at tertiary education in this country, Madam Speaker. So I think the trade-off is acceptable. Madam Speaker, let me congratulate the political leader, the member for Separia, the leader of the opposition, for a stellar and well-delivered budget response befitting her honorable office. Madam Speaker, my colleagues from Faizabad, Couva North, Princestown, Tabaquite, Oropuch West, Kumoto Manzanilla, Naparima, Caroni Central, and Pointe-à-Pierre, they were all exceptional over the last couple of days, Madam Speaker. in their analysis and their interrogation of the facts versus fiction in this fairy tale of a document called the 2018 Budget Statement. Madam Speaker, clearly, form is temporary, class is permanent. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I must admit, when I came to this Parliament in 2015, I had some doubts, some uneasiness, and some apprehension. I am now certain beyond that doubt, Madam Speaker, that this administration has to be the most rudderless, myopic, incoherent, inconsistent team that have sat at the helm of this country, I would say, in the last 100 years, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I assure you that after this budget debate is over, there will be no paradigm shift as discussed by the Honourable Minister of Finance, and neither will there be any rerouting of this economy, either in the medium or the long term. Madam Speaker, this administration is really taking us down a path of economic collapse and ruin. Madam Speaker, it is no wonder that just a day after the Honourable Minister of Finance delivered the budget in this House, a mighty wall came crashing down on him just a day after, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am absolutely disappointed with the quality of presentations from many of my colleagues opposite. You see, reciting what the People's Partnership did or didn't do is really irrelevant to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'll tell you why. They are very much more concerned in going forward, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they are in government and they are in charge. Just in case many of them may not have been awake, they have been in charge for the last 24 months. So going and spending the time just discussing what the partnership did or didn't do really adds no value to the discussion of how are we going to take this country forward in these trying times that we are in, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and I agree with the Minister of Finance that we need a paradigm shift, but nothing in the details so far that I have heard speaks to a paradigm shift. What is a paradigm shift, Madam Speaker? A paradigm shift is when you stop where you're going in one direction and you go somewhere else. Nothing that anybody has presented today, Madam Speaker, speaks to a change in direction. It is more of the same. More of the same strategy, policy, talk, and where is the paradigm shift that the people in this country want? And many are prepared to take the measures that is required. But where is it? So, Madam Speaker, I really expected each of my colleagues opposite to present an account of their stewardship for the last 24 months and then inform the people of this country. You are policy directors in your various ministries. Identify to the people where is the paradigm shift. Correct. Identify. That is what you're here to do. Madam Speaker, all I got for the last couple of days from many of those opposite was a lot of hot air, a lot of steam, same old, same old. Madam Speaker, I think the paradigm shift is stillborn. It is going nowhere. The contributions were a rehash of the same policies, same direction, same outcome. Madam Speaker, just to give an example, this is what I expected. I expected my colleague from Moruga Tableland, who is not here today, as the Junior Minister of Education, to come and tell this House, ladies and gentlemen, I have discussed with the Minister of National Security, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, how we can use migration as a diversification tool. How can migration assist me as the Minister of Education to find quality intellectual people from all over the world who may be fleeing their homelands for various reasons, because we need the intellectual capacity in Trinidad and Tobago today to put into our research, departments in our universities, because we need to build goods and services that the rest of the world want, Madam Speaker. So I expected that the Junior Minister of Education would have come with a paradigm shift in thinking, with something like that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member for Caroni Central, he highlighted the need for technology and innovation. He talks about quantum mechanics and quantum physics and virtual reality. We need to look at how can we get that type of intellectual capacity into our universities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my good friend, the Honourable Minister of Housing, I too expected him to come to this Parliament with some creative ideas. I would have expected the Minister of Housing to come and say, look, ladies and gentlemen, I have figured out a way to tackle the issues of squatter regularization. How can we take 20-acre parcels of land and build new communities? Move 50 squatting families into 5-acre plots with water, sewerage, drainage, and power. This, in effect, minimizes, Madam Speaker, the social and the health burdens on the state. Then you take 5 acres, put them to work on short-term crops, 5 acres with livestock and poultry, and that is used as income generation for the very same squatters. Madam Speaker, the food and meat can be sold in your local supermarkets, in your local butcher shops, and the money that is earned can go towards building new low-income houses for the very same squatters. So we're building new communities. Madam Speaker, that is the kind of paradigm shift that I expect as policy directors in a ministry to really come to this Parliament and say, look, we have to cut and contrive, but listen, we are taking you down a different path. Madam Speaker, I expected the Minister of Social Development to tell this Parliament that the Honourable Member has come up with an innovative strategy to reduce the grant requirements for victims of storms and flooding. I was hoping that the Honourable Member, would have spoken to the Minister of Local Government and through the regional corporation execute projects in communities that are prone to these types of events, and do a project where you can reinforce roofs with hurricane straps, reinforce joints, nail down loose lumber, and galvanize. Madam Speaker, these things, in the next upcoming rainy season, hurricane season, this would reduce the necessity to replace mattresses, furniture, sheets, linens, appliances, home repair grants, etc. Madam Speaker, these are the kind of things that I expect as policy directors, sitting as policy directors in ministries, coming up with these paradigm shifting ideas of how we're going to move, how we're going to stop spending money in certain areas by taking certain actions early on. Madam Speaker, I was expecting the Honourable Minister of Community Development to come to this Parliament and inform us as to new and exciting programs to be executed by her ministry to get our young people involved in a lot of community activities at the very low basic level. Tell us how these programs can assist in things that are critical to our society today: anger management, reduction in domestic violence, school violence, gang warfare, women empowerment, small business creation. Imagine the positive impact these things can have on national security, Madam Speaker. Minister, we learned a lot on our trip to Washington, D.C. on strategies on countering violence extremism. I expected to see some of these things that we learned during that trip, executed in your planning for this next fiscal year. Madam Speaker, my honourable friend from Toko Sandy Grande, I expected the honourable member to come to this house with a revolutionary way, a paradigm shift in the police service recruitment process. She being a police officer, the honourable member that has been a police officer for many, many years. I would have thought that the honourable member would have come to this house and said, look, I have spoken to the Minister of Education and I've asked him to create a police sciences program at the A level for secondary schools. Capture the imagination of our young citizens to desire a career in police sciences. Have UTT establish a 3-year associate's degree program where these A-level students can study law, forensics, ballistics, investigative techniques, criminal psychology. And in their final year, Madam Speaker, they can specialize in particular areas and get into specific units within the TTPS. Madam Speaker, this is how we ramp up the quality and quantity of career officers in the TTPS. These are the kind of revolutionary ideas or the paradigm shifting ideas that I expect as policy directors that they come to this honorable house and tell us about. Madam Speaker, I thought the Honorable Minister of National Security was going to introduce a paradigm shift in developing a 21st century policing unit. Rather than the police commissioner being the panacea to solving crime in this country, I thought the Honorable Minister was going to tell this Parliament that he has come up with another innovative idea. Let's take 100 academically qualified police officers with 10 to 15 years left in the police service, and let's send them and embed them in the New York Police Service in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for 2 to 3 years. When these officers return, Madam Speaker, that is where it becomes important, because those are the ones who become the senior members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and they become senior with the knowledge of first world tools and techniques in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Madam Speaker. And imagine the experience or the knowledge transfer that these officers will have on junior officers coming up the ranks. Madam Speaker, that is how we create a paradigm shift in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Services over the next 5 to 10 years. Madam Speaker, that is what a paradigm shift really is. But Madam Speaker, my focus today is to look on agriculture and test it for the paradigm shift that has been promised by the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, agriculture, in my respectful view, should really be the dominant portfolio at this time in the country's crisis state. It is absolutely essential that we are able to feed ourselves as we prepare for a very uncertain future in an unsettled global climate. It is important, though, that we take a brief look at the government's performance in the last 24 months. Madam Speaker, after 2 years of this PNM government, they have clearly demonstrated its total neglect and disregard for the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago. Since this administration took office, Madam Speaker, the sector has witnessed a drastic decline in all areas. Madam Speaker, let's look quickly at some of the 2017 budget statement, the promises that were made. Restructuring the school feeding program, enhance market opportunities through an expanded tourism sector. Madam Speaker, the tourism sector has virtually collapsed in this country over the last 24 months. Drainage upgrades, modernization of land records. Investors and farmers will access low-cost credit from the ADB. Irrigation infrastructure, enhanced water resource management system, access roads improvement, fish landing site upgrades, coconut industry, coconut rehabilitation and replanting program, 900 acres. Madam Speaker, I travel the East Coast every time to come here and I'm still looking for the 900 acres of coconut. Can't find it. Madam Speaker, despite all the promises made, nothing tangible has been done to improve the sector. It's really a tale of woe with this government. Many words, but very little action, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Opposition Leader was quite correct in laying our position that these promises, both in fiscal 2017 and 2018, will go the way of more betrayal and broken promises by the PNM government. Madam Speaker, I want to touch on some data that came straight out of the development project booklet that was provided. And something is absolutely wrong with the ministry or the minister. And I'm not laying blame here on either or, because when you have a ministry that spends 32% of its allocation in a critical ministry like agriculture, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Madam Speaker, under the developmental, or what you call the DP Consolidated Fund, the Ministry of Agriculture spent 32.5% of the allocation in that ministry. No allocation, Madam Speaker, was made on the development of the fish processing industry. This is poor planning for a value-added feature in our diversification drive. How can you not look at those areas? And we are talking diversification year after year. Madam Speaker, the minister or the ministry failed to set up community-based aquaculture programs. Listen to this, Madam Speaker. They spent $88,000 out of a $500,000 allocation. Something is wrong. Diversification is important. We can't spend it. Madam Speaker, there was a failure to spend strategically on the conservation and preservation of the buffalo. That has high export potential and substitution potential. But you know what, Madam Speaker? The ministry only spent $150,000 out of a $1 million allocation. Now, again, Madam Speaker, what is going wrong? You have allocations, you have a strategy, you're in a critical ministry, spend the allocation because we have to move this sector forward. There was an allocation for agricultural access to targeted commodities and strategic crops. Now that to me is critical in the substitution arena. If we have to substitute local grown crops rather than having to buy it from a way to save our foreign exchange. But Madam Speaker, would you believe, out of a $7 million allocation, $300,000 was spent? How do you, explain that? And I'm not saying that there may be challenges, but how do you rate the performance and the function of your ministry or your minister when you have these type of allocations in critical areas? You're not spending the allocation. Something is absolutely wrong there. Drainage and irrigation, Madam Speaker, not a project implemented. And drainage and irrigation, this is food, this is plants. They need water, they need to be irrigated. So all I'm telling the national community is that if we are to measure the performance of the government, well then this tells the tale, this tells the story. Madam Speaker, I have been in contact with farmers over the last couple of weeks, and I continue to have conversations with them to make sure that, I am kept abreast of challenges, whether the government through the minister and the ministry is really making any headway. And these are the things that the farmers are telling me, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, agricultural subsidies and payments. The Minister of Agriculture, the farmers want him to know that they have been waiting up to 3 years to collect their subsidy payments. There's a farmer said he's trying to collect some subsidies on spray cans for the longest of a while, and he can't get the money. Madam Speaker, even more detrimental is our rice farmers. Our rice farmers are critical to our food security here in this country. And you know what, Madam Speaker? There are rice farmers in Plumita and in Navet who haven't been paid in 1 year. And they have to go back to the land and replant. And these are very low margin types of operation. And the minute you don't pay these guys, you put them at risk, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, can you imagine farmers having invested in irrigation, digging of ponds, purchasing their equipment, and after 3-4 years, still waiting on money? Madam Speaker, agriculture access roads is critical also to our farmers. And you know what? I can tell you that nothing tangible. I now read for you from the DP that no agricultural road programs were initiated. Madam Speaker, as a member of Parliament for Mayaro, I have written the minister and the ministry scores of letters I have written him the honorable member, several times for roads for my farmers in the constituency. And Madam Speaker, just for the record, I want to quickly just call out some of these roads. Legion Road in Ecclesville, Mahabal Singh Branch 2 Extension, Guppy Hill Extension, Sakiv Trace Extension, where all our farmers, our rice farmers are. Ramkisoon Trace of Mahabal Singh, Mapapi Trace of Pond Road, Rajpal Trace of Lejeune Road, Macmohan Road Extension. Madam Speaker, this is where the bulk of our farmers are. And when you don't have access road, communication, which is critical to get in, get out, get products in, get product to market, when these roads are not fixed, it puts pressure on our farmers, Madam Speaker. Pressure on the farmers. Madam Speaker, marketing. When the goods are, the challenge to get it out, they come to the market now, it's more pressure for our farmers. Madam Speaker, farmers face a range of marketing challenges. At the local wholesale level, at the Norris Dairy and wholesale market, the market has clearly outgrown its capacity. And there is persistent problems of overcrowding. And Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if you have ever had to, be in traffic on the highway and all these farmer trucks are backed up onto the highway, causing inordinate delays of traffic. Madam Speaker, that is something that we must address for our farmers. Another issue that the farmers have identified, Madam Speaker, is that foreign produce is saturating the market. Now, I know we cannot prevent our CARICOM neighbors from getting their products into our markets, but we must find some creative way to give our farmers a competitive advantage at the end of the day. Perhaps it's about time, Madam Speaker, that we start looking at a place for the foreign products to be marketed, not inside the wholesale market that we have there in Makoya. Madam Speaker, another big issue that our farmers have been complaining about over the last year or so, and I guess it's perennial, it's the fluctuation in the produce prices that they are able to access on the local market. A lot of farmers depend on what you call rain-fed or seasonal agricultural production. And you tend to have an oversupply of the produce during certain months. Now, this greatly affects the prices, and you end up with gluts on the market, and then the farmers could lose their investment, they lose the investment on the crop, because they cannot get a proper return on their investment. This is wreaking havoc on the farmers, especially when they have to repay their loans and so on. Madam Speaker, running off the fact of gluts on the market, you have an issue that the agro-processing component of the sector is woefully inadequate, more so that it is even failing. When there is oversupply, the question of lack of storage and agro-processing, it raises its ugly head. The farmers are crying bitterly to have this situation rectified, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the area of export marketing, farmers are concerned that not enough is being done by the relevant state agencies, especially NAMDEFCO, to assist the farmers in developing this market to get their agricultural produce outside there. Madam Speaker, I think the king of the problem of the farmers, the main one, is land tenure, renewal of agricultural leases, modernization of land records. At a recent JSC hearing, Madam Speaker, a lot of these issues were vented. And while not getting into the details of those meetings, what I can tell you is that the state agencies are fully aware of the problems and they know how to fix it because they've done it in the past. But yet, Madam Speaker, the issue still remains unsolved in 2018. There are a couple additional issues that are locked into the issue of land tenure. One, without these land tenure, without the agricultural leases, Madam Speaker, credit from the ADB and commercial financial institution is absent. Madam Speaker, many of these farmers, without these leases, they can't even get the farmer's ID card that allows them to get access to the subsidies, the incentives. High cost of agricultural inputs, feeds, agrochemicals, fertilizers. There are a few companies, I am told, Madam Speaker, who import these items and they control these prices. And when they control the prices, the farmers have to pay whatever these companies are asking for it. And last on that list, Madam Speaker, is the high cost of labor. For years, for the last 2 years more so, the conversation about having CPEP and URP participate in the agricultural sector, that has not materialized. I think it was mentioned in this year's budget too, and I suspect it's going to be another promise that will not materialize either. But Madam Speaker, what in the 2018 budget spoke to all those items? Nothing. Nothing in terms of a paradigm shift spoke to these items to fix it. Because why are we creating paradigm shifts if not to fix the problems for the stakeholders? We have to fix the problems for the stakeholders. Madam Speaker, let me tell you what it is that was mentioned in the budget. The Minister of Finance reiterated that the agricultural sector is one of those earmarked after 2 years, third budget. It is still earmarked for special focus. So let's look at the special focus that the minister is asked to focus on. One, agriculture. The agricultural sector will boost the health of the nation. Yet, Madam Speaker, nothing in the DP or the developmental plan speaks to any strategy or speaks to any program that is going to allow a bridge or a combination between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Agriculture to boost the health of our nation. I would suggest if there is nothing in place, that won't be put in place soonest, because that is critical to the health of our young people and our elderly. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance also goes on to say that as a special focus, agriculture will contribute to food security and exports. But Madam Speaker, this administration had the audacity to close down Caroni Green, which was generating foreign exchange. They were boosting the supply of hot peppers on the international market, so our local farmers will have a steady demand so that they can continue producing as much as they can. You know what's sad, Madam Speaker? They shut down Caroni Green with peppers on the tree. This is like watching US dollars rotten and fall onto the ground.
And you have a shortage.
And you have a shortage on top of that. So, Madam Speaker, I don't understand how the position of the government and making a claim, make it a focus, but yet, just a few months ago, you mash up a whole industry with that pepper. Madam Speaker, focus number 3. Present spill-offs through agro-processing. Madam Speaker, how exactly are they going to do this? This government has been treating agriculture like a seesaw. They spoke about agro-processing, making concessions last year. And you know, in this year's budget, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance admitted failure in this venture when he said that the agro-processing was extremely low in this country. Madam Speaker, focus number 4 says that the 2018 budget, agriculture, he's hoping to enhance agricultural income. Well, after the first 3, I do not know how the Honorable Minister is going to enhance anything, because 2 years into this government, none of their manifesto promises have been fulfilled in the agricultural sector, yet they want to enhance income. Madam Speaker, we heard a lot of technical jargon in the presentation. Speaks about GDP, speaks about consumption of foreign exchange. But Madam Speaker, it is well to note that agriculture does not fit the typical economic model. Madam Speaker, only when agriculture is viewed in terms of the profit, not being dollars and cents, but long as it becomes food security and a greater access to nutritional foods, then, only then can we say our agricultural sector is successful. And that is the paradigm shift that I am waiting for in the 2018 document, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if we leave this sector to the economists and the financial experts, we will not realize anything. Because if you are looking at agriculture only in terms of dollars and cents, we will go nowhere, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, focus number 5 in the budget, agro-processing parks. while I have no problem giving farmers access to modern facilities, I have a problem that there are 2 packaging houses, one in Tabaquite, one in Couva, that are yet to be utilized after 2 years, Madam Speaker. So how can you talk about processing parks? Nothing in the budget for it. And yet you have 2 sitting down doing nothing. Madam Speaker, the minister also spoke about building new shells in Moruga. Now, we have no money. We have 2 shells sitting down right there, and we're going and build another one. Madam Speaker, it is not making sense, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would implore the Honorable Minister, or the people in his ministry, to look at, if you want to build some more shell, build it in Tableland. Because Tableland has our pineapple farmers, who I am absolutely sure could turn their product into export generating products like canned foods, chunks, slices, juices for sale on both the local and international market, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to touch on, I think, what is a controversial topic in the budget, that of the agricultural grants. Let me say from the onset also, Madam Speaker, that I do not have a problem with financial assistance for any new farmer, any old farmer. But my problem is with the disbursement and how we are going to categorize such. Madam Speaker, the opposition leader was rightfully, she rightfully put it, and I want to repeat it boldly, the 100,000 agricultural incentive, the $100,000 incentive listed in this budget is nothing more than another slush fund to compensate for political patronage and favoritism. Madam Speaker, the government is the main shareholder in the ADB. This bank is governed by statute, Madam Speaker. And under Section 34B of the Act, the ADB has the power to grant or underwrite loans for the development of agriculture, commercial, fishing, and industries connected to such person. Madam Speaker, it is either blatant complacency bordering on hypocrisy on the one hand to talk to citizens about being overly dependent on handouts or subsidies such as fuel, T&Tech, WASA, while on the other hand, you're talking about giving grants up to $100,000. Madam Speaker, what security does the taxpayers of this country have that their money will be handed over to individuals who will put it to good use? Here's the guarantee. Madam Speaker, why not give an allowance or a loan guarantee for a prolonged period? Let's assume 10 years. Let's assume you get it through the ADB at 1%, the lowest interest rate that you can possibly get. Madam Speaker, when you do it like this, we give the taxpayers 2 assurances. Firstly, that the farmer or the friend would not take the money and after 1 crop cycle, fold up shop and pocket the rest and go. And that is what's going to happen, Madam Speaker. And the second item, Madam Speaker, if we do it through the ADB, the most important thing is that the farmer will stay in the field. Because this principle that he would get, it now becomes not an incentive, but an investment in Trinidad and Tobago and the food security of this country, Madam Speaker. That is the 2 things that if this grant is routed through the legally constituted body to work with farmers in this country. I wish, Madam Speaker, to totally object to this ministerial committee that would be deciding on who receives this $100,000 grant. Because this clearly can be opened up to political favoritism or victimization. And Madam Speaker, political victimization is real. It's absolutely real. And I can tell you, today on social media, I read a very interesting story. I read a story today of a witness who have appeared before a particular JSC and lost her job last night. And it has me worried that this may have political dots to connect. So, but I leave that there, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that is something real, and we have to be very concerned about it. Madam Speaker, I want to echo the sentiments of the opposition leader again, that if this ministerial committee were to be implemented, because we can't find the estimates for that anywhere in the existing budget, nor do we trust them to even implement this thing. We will scrutinize it to the point that if required, we will file complaints with the Equal Opportunities Tribunal to make sure that it is done fairly and squarely to all people in this country. Madam Speaker, I will tell this House, this Parliament today, that none of the 6 focus points that have been mentioned in the 2018 budget really shifting the paradigm, because it is more of the same, nothing. And as I said in my startup, Madam Speaker, I agree that we need a paradigm shift. I am prepared, my constituents are prepared to bear that grind, make the shift, but it is not being said in the document. Nothing has changed in that paradigm, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me go quickly and offer some suggestions to the Minister of Finance on how we should be shifting the paradigm in agriculture. Madam Speaker, what is in our 10 to 15-year horizon in agriculture? We have no choice other than to make food supply a matter of national security, Madam Speaker. We must be in a position within the next 10 to 15 years to feed ourselves. It cannot be last on the national agenda. It has to occupy the first plot. And I'm particularly glad, Madam Speaker, that today is the first time in 4 budget statements that agriculture have been allowed to speak before the 7 o'clock news. So I'm hoping that something I say end up on the news because of its importance. Normally I speak about it 12 o'clock in the night. All right, but anyway, I mean, I am hoping that somebody listens at the end of the day. Madam Speaker, this requires a transformational shift in our thinking, our planning, and the execution of the agricultural sector, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let's face the truth. Let's face the truth. We have been talking economic diversification for years. Who is going to step in to be these entrepreneurial messiahs to save this country in agriculture, Madam Speaker? Who is going to do it? Is it the upper class, the ones that we now commonly refer to as the 1%? Madam Speaker, after 50 years, it has not happened, and I am telling you it's not going to happen. Madam Speaker, is it the middle or the working class, Madam Speaker? No, because they can't do it either. They are now being ripped apart at the seams in terms of taxes and the burden in this country, that they are being used to support the social network, the social safety net. So they are not the ones who are going to be able to be that entrepreneurial class to take us forward. So who are we left with, Madam Speaker? We are left with the task of charting our future. And I am telling you, Madam Speaker, it is our farmers. But they cannot do it without the help of the state. If we want to take the country in a particular direction, we must create the pathways for it to happen. So, Madam Speaker, the first suggestion in terms of a paradigm shift in agriculture, I am asking that land tenure reform take a new format. Registered farmers must be given priority in the granting of tenure on state lands. This process should be unburdened from state agencies. Madam Speaker, in a lot of first world countries, the private sector has councils and NGOs who are trusted, who are given a trusted role to process these applications. So you take it out of the state hands that are really creating the bottlenecks for the farmers. Madam Speaker, that is a paradigm shift in thinking that we must look at. Madam Speaker, the second shift that we ought to be looking at is in the infrastructure development of these agricultural lands. Madam Speaker, in the early days of the Point Lisas industrial estate, there was much hesitation and procrastination. But today, Madam Speaker, Point Lisas is the heart that keeps pumping blood through this country. We need an agricultural point leases, Madam Speaker. The state must take the risk of the cost of developing the land with the necessary infrastructure, water, power, irrigation, ponds, access roads. New and existing farmers must be able to bring to market products within 6 to 8 months of being granted access to these agri-development zones. Madam Speaker, these zones must also fetch preferred utility rates for water and power. Farmers can also be removed if no visible activity or action is taken within a set time frame. Madam Speaker, that is how we change a paradigm in driving out the needs of our food security in this country. Madam Speaker, paradigm shift number 3, guaranteed minimum pricing. Certain basic staples, we talk about price fluctuation and its impact on our farmers. Basic staples must be given a minimum price. The state should encourage farmers to produce as much as they want to, knowing that their minimum price will hold and not collapse because of market gluts. Staples such as rice, cassava, tomatoes, farmers will put their best foot and hand forward to maximize the output from the land, knowing that they will get guaranteed pricing for these products, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Shift 3 speaks to Shift 4, storage and marketing. What do we do with these products when there is oversubscription, when there is overproduction? Madam Speaker, a greater effort by NAMDEFCO to provide storage facilities for when there is oversupply, packaging and processing that is on par with local and international standards. Madam Speaker, these shells which the minister referred to in his budget statements, it's what we call the packaging houses. They must be staffed with competent people. We must use modern technology in storage facilities, in the processing and packaging facilities to make our output, our cost to produce these items as low as possible. NAMDEFCO, Madam Speaker, must now act as a regulator which will adjust the supply based on market demands. All surplus should either be stored or can be exported. Madam Speaker, paradigm shift number 5, additional credit and financing for farmers. While the ADB has a statutory mandate to provide low-cost financing for agricultural products, I am asking the commercial banking sector to join forces with the state and provide soft loans.
Honourable Member for Miaro, your original 45 minutes is now spent. You're entitled to 10 more minutes to wind up.
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I'm asking the commercial banking sector to join forces with the state and provide these soft loans. Farmers have been treated as pariahs by the commercial banking sector over years. Commercial banks are unwilling to take the risk with farmers. But you know, Madam Speaker, perhaps instead of the Minister of Finance bullying the bankers for an extra 10% corporation tax, bullying them for 10% extra corporation tax, perhaps the minister could have called the banking association. Well, it's 25 to 30, 25 to 35. So it's 30 to 35 then. Okay. Well, 5%. Let's for argument's sake, Madam Speaker, 5% corporation tax. Perhaps, Madam Speaker, the disturbing man are trying to run through very quickly for my time.
Members.
Could the minister tell the banks, look, put a fund with $50 million and allow our farmers to access some low-cost funding for their infrastructure development? So you add whatever the ADB, whatever the state is providing, you now have the commercial banks adding some financing to that. Paradigm shift 6, Madam Speaker. The government must really look at doing what a lot of other countries are doing and try to invest or even owning wheat farms in the United States and Europe. Owning these types of farms, Madam Speaker, will guarantee our food supply during times of war and conflict. And we must never underestimate the impact of the North-South Korean conflict and how it can reach our shores very, very quickly. Madam Speaker, we cannot take anything for granted. Paradigm number 7, Madam Speaker, connecting the use of IT and digital technology in farming. And this is in direct connection to what the political leader spoke about, the 4th Industrial Revolution. Madam Speaker, do you know in the Netherlands, which is a very small country, they have approximately 153,000 greenhouses. And you know what? They produce over 141,000 tons of products per square mile. Per square mile inside of these greenhouses by the clear use of technology-driven agriculture, Madam Speaker. This is the kind, excuse me? Yes, in 153,000 greenhouses. Madam Speaker, so the use of technology is critical for the farming industry in Trinidad and Tobago to move forward. And last of all in the paradigm shift, Madam Speaker, is one of culture. It's how we see our farmers. We need to respect and treat our farmers with dignity. Madam Speaker, this is the most important element for success. We must give our farmers the respect and the dignity that the profession brings. Farmers must never be made to feel that they are second or third class citizens in this country, Madam Speaker. In my respectful view, our farmers ought to be positioned as the new 1% going forward, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is the type of paradigm shift that we as a country should be expecting when a budget document comes before this House. But unfortunately, that is not the case. So, Madam Speaker, as I wrap up, I want to let this House know that our people are prepared to make the sacrifices that are needed to move this country forward. But they are not prepared to willingly accept mediocrity and half-baked plans to take us nowhere. Madam Speaker, as I bring my contribution to an end, I wish to remind this administration that we are all prepared for the burden of adjustment. We are all prepared to eat a little, live a little longer, but we are all prepared to do our part for the love of our country. But we are not prepared to accept poor leadership, poor governance, and a total disrespect for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Port of Spain South. Sit down, sit down.
Daisy B.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, as usual, for this opportunity to contribute to the 2018 budget debate. And Madam Speaker, I want to state that this is my 11th contribution. My 11th contribution. And I could recognize when I hear a good contribution, when I hear a mediocre one, and when someone is just going around the mulberry bush. I want to tell my colleague from Mayaro that in the last, between 2010 to 2015, you said a short while ago that we on this side, we are too preoccupied with talking about 2010 to 2015. But member from Mayaro, I sat across there for 5 years, from 2010 to 2015. And all I heard was the Sioux, the Rapid Rail, the church in Carapo, the Duster, the 90, who went with curlers in the hair all year's night to withdraw their money from the bank. You know, and I'll tell you something further. I also heard, when I sat there, the Brian Lara Stadium down in Taruba, and somebody on my side said, when you all are going to finish it? And the response from this side was, that is P&M shame. We are not going to fix it. It's P&M shame. And now you are telling us on this side we must not talk about 2010 to 2015. 2010 to 2015 represented, as far as I am concerned, the bankruptcy that you all are talking about. It represents bankruptcy. That is where it started. That is the genesis. You see, you were not in this house. You were not here.
It was in the PNM.
And you...
And he lost his mind. In the PNM.
But I sat there. And I took it for 5 years. And remember for Oropuchis, he knows that. He's well aware of that. We took it for 5 years. And you all went on and on. And now, you all are trying to play paragon of virtue for me? No. No, no. No, no. You are as guilty as ever. I recall the member who sat here, the member for Arima, told this house that PNM must atone for their sins. And I tell you something, Kuva South coming to you just now. And I want to state quite clearly that we paid our dues. And 2010, the country took a decision. I was always one who was quick to say the country took a decision. They took a decision in 2015. Sit, accept it, do what you have to do, but do not knock us when we stand here and we speak about the activities between 2010 to 2015. And with respect to the agricultural plan, I think you have some good ideas. You can speak to the Minister of Finance. But I also read the offerings of this government in this budget statement. And I can tell you that there's a comprehensive plan there. But you must remember that we don't have the type of money that you would want to see certain activities done. We don't have that type of money. But I noticed that a $20 million incentive program has been put in place for the farmers. It has been placed there. And I tell you something, Mayaro, you know better than I do with respect to agriculture. For years, successive governments would have been grappling with how to move agriculture forward. And if you go way back, 20, 25 years, you would recognize that when the oil industry took off and there was this boom, there was something in economics that you call the rural-urban drift. That is when people left the land. You know it better than I do. They left the land and they went to work in the urban areas, in the oil industry, etc. But I tell you something, this government is committed to assisting the farmers, and we are not going to back down. Madam Speaker, the government's theme for 2018 is changing the paradigm, putting the economy on a sustainable path. And I support this theme wholeheartedly. Madam Speaker, what this budget is attempting to do is to continue what the government has started in 2017. And their theme then was crafting a blueprint for transformation as well as growth. And in so doing, we are laying the foundation for a sound economy. But Madam Speaker, I stand here tonight with a heavy heart because I've been here for quite some time in this parliament. And I say so because of the difficult situation that this country has found itself. But I also do know that this country could have been so much better off were it not for those disastrous 5 years and 90 days of the rule, the governance of the other side. Madam Speaker, they had a ball. They saved nothing. And now all of them are now talking about this government is bankrupt. We have no vision. We have no plan. But the thing about it is, where did it start? So I want to come away from all the figures and whatnot and really talk. Miss Point up here was having a conversation with the speaker. I'm not only having a conversation with the speaker, I'm having a conversation with this country here tonight.
That's right.
To remind you all that this country must never forget your fiscal responsibility. We must never forget your basic disregard for basic norms. We must never ever forget your preoccupation with being popular. And I'll tell you all something. As I said, I sat for 5 years and I observed. Madam Speaker, from where I sit, this budget is not just about crunching numbers. This budget is not just about the fact that we have lost over $20 billion in 4 years. This budget is not just about the depressed oil and gas prices. As someone on the ground, I dare say that this budget 2018 has everything to do with people. It has to do with the people issues and the problems we will encounter in trying to provide for our citizens while keeping this country away from the throes of the IMF. This budget will teach all of us to become our own managers at this point in time. Madam Speaker, between 2010 to 2015, no new income streams were created. None were created to support the unprecedented expenditure. Well, if there were, then you all did not tell this country. You all did not tell us. No attempts were made at any form of diversification away from oil and gas. None. The reality is, Madam Speaker, we have to examine the nature of the expenditure that they got involved in. And we know the difference between the recurrent and the capital expenditure. And the capital expenditure has everything to do with the generation of assets. Madam Speaker, in order to fund their projects, the former government, what did they do? They ran high deficits and they borrowed. They couldn't care less about the debt to GDP ratio. They didn't care about that. International oil and gas prices have been on the decrease throughout 2014, 2015, Madam Speaker. But despite this situation, the former government took virtually no action to stabilize the public finances. None. In 2015, fiscal 2015, while government's revenue from oil fell by $8 billion, the expenditure only went down by $3 billion. So you were in this constant tailspin of deficit after deficit after deficit. As a consequence, the fiscal deficit ballooned to $7 billion, roughly 4.2% of GDP. So the situation before us is very clear, Madam Speaker. We cannot spend what we do not have. If our revenues have been reduced, then we have to adjust our expenditure. We, as a responsible government, it behoves us to act in a manner that will be redound to the benefit of the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago. We have to adjust our expectations. Yes. This must be our new reality. This approach would give life to the Minister of Finance's theme, changing the paradigm, putting the economy on a sustainable path. Madam Speaker, if we do not do this, then we run the risk of mortgaging this country, and it will be on the backs of our children and our grandchildren that the burden of the debts we create today knowingly, they would have to pay. So we have to initiate that paradigm shift. And the time to do it is now. We need to take the corrective measures now. And Madam Speaker, it is better we make our own adjustments for our citizenry rather than leave it to the IMF, an external force, to come to tell us what to do. We are a sovereign nation. True. And we must live up to that. I can assure you that if we allow the IMF to enter this country, the first thing they will do is to cut recurrent expenditure. And recurrent expenditure, Madam Speaker, covers like your personal expenditure, salaries, wages, purchases of goods and services, current transfers and subsidies, debt servicing. Madam Speaker, I said it last year in this House, and I will say it again this year. Trinidad and Tobago does not operate in a vacuum. We are an open, dependent economy. We are price takers. Whatever happens in the global economy with respect to oil and gas prices will affect us here in Trinidad and Tobago. So again, the issue for Trinidad and Tobago is how do we manage and adjust our economy in the face of decreasing and unstable oil and gas prices. Hence again, I am using the theme all over. The raison d'etre of this budget is changing the paradigm, putting the economy on a sustainable path. This must become our new normal. Yes. Madam Speaker, at this point, I want to place our current crisis in the context of developments in the global economy, and in particular, to compare our country with other countries that are similarly circumstanced. And Madam Speaker, you know I like to scan the globe. So I want to look at Saudi Arabia very briefly. And Saudi Arabia possesses 18% of the world's proven petroleum reserves and ranks as the largest exporter of petroleum. The oil and gas sector accounts for about 50% of the GDP and about 85% of export earnings. But over the past 2 years, Saudi Arabia had to cut energy subsidies. They had to slash public spending and started to look for new ways to raise revenue outside of the oil sector. Madam Speaker, according to the World Bank Group, fiscal deficits are expected to surpass an estimated $97 billion in 2017. International reserves are down. The kingdom has borrowed significantly, $26 billion in 2016, $10 billion April of 2017, and they are planning to borrow yet another $15 billion. The government has taken austerity measures in the 2016 budget, including a 14% cut in spending, mainly on defense and fuel subsidies. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, there were budgetary allocations for health, education, municipality services have all been reduced. And a point that my colleague from Labray made, the largest increases in fuel are 130% for ethane, 79% increase for transport diesel, and 67% each for natural gas and low-grade gasoline. Prices of electricity and water have been increased by 60%, Madam Speaker. The wage bill is reduced to less than 15% of GDP, curtailing public sector wage increases, and the renegotiating of all contracts have been cut also for capital expenditure. Madam, that is the state of play in Saudi Arabia. In Nigeria, Nigeria is considered a middle-income emerging market and is the largest economy in Africa. Their oil and gas sector account for some 35% of GDP and 90% of their total export revenue. However, Nigeria has been having a lot of problems also. They now have instituted a plan called the Zero Oil Plan. Nigeria has lost some 30 trillion of national export revenue between 2015 to 2017 due to the crash in oil prices. So there is need now to ramp up in Nigeria the non-oil exports, as Nigeria's future earnings seem to be doomed. Madam Speaker, the Zero Oil Plan aims at earning at least $30 billion from the non-oil sector in order to boost the economy. They're also looking at other things in terms of diversification. They are looking to export more rice, wheat, corn, palm oil, rubber, hides and skin, sugar, amongst other things. Norway, we go to Europe. The petroleum's contribution to GDP peaked at 25% in 2008 to an all-time low of 15% in 2015. Revenue tumbled from 33% in 2012 to 20% in 2015. As a result, thousands of Norwegians lost their jobs. And Norwegian, the paper is saying, has become one of the most indebted people in Europe. Unemployment peaked in the middle of the year and has again fallen. That is the state of play in Norway. So you see, Madam Speaker, energy-dependent countries with larger reserves than Trinidad and Tobago are all experiencing levels of hardship, and they have to adopt some sort of measure in order to move away from oil and gas revenues. I turn my attention to the Caribbean region. And we must always remember that our neighbors in the Caribbean, they absorb a large portion of our exports, especially in manufacturing. The health and strength of these economies, Madam Speaker, become very critical to our domestic non-oil exporters. The recent devastation by Irma, as well as Maria, should remind us all of how vulnerable our economies are. So at this point, my deepest sympathies to the people in Barbuda, Dominica, St. Martin, Puerto Rico, and all other affected islands. Madam Speaker, in order to understand the need to make our own adjustments, I will briefly look at two CARICOM countries and their approach to dealing or not dealing with the IMF. And these two countries are, and I'm going to juxtapose them, Jamaica, which has been associated with the IMF for quite some time, and Barbados, who is resisting the IMF. Jamaica's membership in the IMF dates back to February the 21st, 1963. Jamaica has a population of some $2.8 million. And they have had 16 arrangements with the IMF since joining in 1963. So Jamaica has been associated with the IMF for the past 54 years. Yet there's no sign, Madam Speaker, that it has improved its economic viability in any way. After 20 years of negative average annual per capita, Jamaica continues to be plagued by high debt and low growth. Madam Speaker, they have just signed off on a new package, a new 3-year package with the IMF. Barbados, on the other hand, their membership dates back to December the 29th, 1970. But they have had 2 arrangements since joining the IMF. But Barbados represents a country that is heavily burdened, but has done everything to resist going to the IMF. As they entered fiscal 2017, they were laboring under the burden of high debt, high expenditure, low income, but Barbados has remained stubbornly outside of the doors of the IMF. And you have to ask the question, why, Madam Speaker? Why has the government held back from a formal agreement? And they did that because they feared that the deal may involve the devaluation of the Barbadian dollar, which is currently pegged at $1 Barbados dollar to 50 cents US. And this comes, Madam Speaker, after the fact that the Barbados economy back in September 2016, their net government debt grew from 8.4 billion, not grew, reduced from 8.4 billion to 7.8 billion. And despite it all, the Barbadian government decided we are not going there. We are going to try, and we are going to resist it, and we're going to do everything as humanly possible so our people don't go through those austerity measures. You have to cut your cloth to suit your suit, according to my grandmother. And the other thing too, in Jamaica, it had gotten so bad in Jamaica with the IMF that the IMF had a member of staff stationed at the central bank, had his own office at the central bank in Jamaica. So you had people, external people, actually dictating the pace for you in your country. And this is what this government is trying to avoid. Through it all, we are reducing. Yes, we are reducing. Yes, I heard somebody say, I think was member for Tabakit, we reduce MILAT, we reduce civilian conservation corps. Yes, we have to reduce these programs because, again, we don't have the income to support. If we are doing 40 million, we cut it to 30 million. But we are going to try still. And this is one of the ways we have to do it. Reduce government spending before the IMF comes in to tell us, we will reduce it for you. Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I turn now to our local economic situation. I heard those on the other side criticizing the proposals. But let me tell you, the opposition leader, in her presentation, tried to compare the PNM's increase in revenue or expenditure between the years 2003 to 2008. But I want to tell her something. She isn't here. Between 2003 to 2004, our expenditure was 15.8 billion, with a revenue of 16.7 billion. We had a surplus of 958 million. In 2005, the expenditure was 19.1 billion, with a revenue of 20.6 billion. And up to 2009, 2008, 2009, our expenditure was $44.7 billion, with a revenue of 56.8 billion, with a surplus of 12.1. So when we got more revenue, we were able to spend more on our people. We were able to do more capital expenditure and perhaps more recurrent expenditure. But on the other hand, when we look at the figures, your figures, over the last, between 2010 to 2015, each time the projected revenue increased, you all spend more and more. But you all acted as if the budget was only about expenditure, nothing else. And then you claim, now you all have become the biggest town criers. The budget is bankrupt. You all have no vision. You all are clueless. You all vacuous. But I'll tell you something. What I will say here tonight is that you all have no shame. No shame. You took no hard decisions. You implemented no significant revenue-generated measures. Even something as non-oppressive as the old property tax, you refused to implement. Madam Speaker, they continue not to accept responsibility for what has happened between 2010 to 2015. But in case they forgot, let me remind you, Madam Speaker, and the national community, the destabilization of the foreign exchange market began in 2014, and we are still struggling with it. The national budget went over $60 billion. Overspending on almost every government project or acquisition became the norm. The GATE program exploded way out of control. And there was unrealistic wage settlements just before the election. I want to talk about Couva North. I listened to Couva North's contribution. And Couva North said there was a decrease in the allocation to the Couva-Tabakit Regional Corporation. But Couva North, and you too, Couva South, you were in this house. You were in this house back in 2013. Hello, I am on my feet. Thank you. And you were in this house, both of you, Couva North and Couva South. And you all will recall the massive increases to the UNC control corporations. Massive increases. And I walk with the figures here because I went into the Hansard and I got out my figures in my presentation. And I want to tell you all, for the Port of Spain Corporation, your city, we only got 0.48%, which is $933,000 increase. Sawa Laventille, another PNM control corporation, got 0.34%, which is $462,000. But look at San Fernando, 9.7% increase. That is 9.9 million they got. Chaguanas, 9.3% increase. That's 6.4 million. Tunapuna, 9.9% increase. That's 1.5 million. San Rigani, 10.2%, working out to $6.4 million. That is what happened. And now we stand here now and we talk about inequitable distribution of resources. I am the one who championed that phrase, inequitable distribution of resources, because I asked the question then, what is in it for Port of Spain South? What is in it? No answer. Oropouche West. I listened to Oropouche West from home yesterday. And Oropouche West talked, I think the Minister of Sports, he spoke. And she mentioned that she was appalled. The member was appalled that so many things happened up in North when the Minister of Sports spoke. And she's wondering what was happening in my constituency. I want to tell her something. Again, when I spoke back 3 years ago, I asked the speaker for the opportunity to present some figures. And I asked what was happening on the East-West corridor and in Port of Spain South. Because I'll give you the list of projects for what happened in South then. Oncology Center in Pinal. The DB campus in Pinal. The Children's Hospital in Presal. This was in your PSIP. Campus of Costat in Chaguanas. Construction. I am, Madam Speaker. Protect me, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed, Port of Spain South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The construction of UWI South Campus, DB. Establishment of a Skills and Technology Center in DB Pinal. The National Aquatic Center in Couva. The National Cycle Center in Couva. The Militia Community Development in Chaguanas. A National Center for Non-Communicable Diseases in Pinal. YTEP in Chaguanas. Ministry of Food Production in Chaguanas. This is what I presented to the Parliament, and nobody rebutted this. Nobody rebutted this. All these here were in your PSIP. Madam Speaker, I was appalled to hear the leader of the opposition spoke about shale gas. And she also said we must remember those people who voted us into power. They are our employers, and we must account to them at all times. But the member for Paray isn't here, because I would want to ask her, how did she account to the citizens of this country with respect to the true state of the financial affairs? Madam Speaker, it was on the 17th of September 2014 when I made my contribution to the 2015 budget. And I said then that should United States become self-sufficient in shale gas, we would lose our competitive edge. And right now, what we should have done is be looking for new markets or looking for a new source of supply. Nobody took us on. We have not done well in finding new gas and oil reserves. We have not done well at all. But they continued on, and I'm surprised to hear the member for Superior making those ludicrous statements in her contribution. Madam Speaker, what they did over that 5-year period, all they did was put plasters. Madam Speaker, and you see that irritating voice?
Can I invoke Standing Order 53, specifically in relation to the member for Cuba South?
Members, I know it's late. I would rather that I protect the member for Port of Spain South than she have to protect herself. So that I'd ask people to cooperate. Please continue Port of Spain South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Always good for your intervention. Cuba South, I'll be here tomorrow for you. So, Madam Speaker, they were just putting plasters on sores. They were just propping up a very weak economy. So I want the member for Superior to tell me how was she accountable over that 5-year period. And added to this, Madam Speaker, the Trinidad and Tobago revenue was threatened by that U.S. shale gas. That is what you would want me to answer. And that is what you all wanted us to answer between 2010 to 2015. But I would not take that bait. You on that side, you have placed this country 10 years backward. You would recall back in 2014 to 2015, what happened. You all came to this parliament here and you all increased all those grants in social development. It cost this country, for additional senior citizens grant, $500 million a year. It costs the expansion of the social safety net, $175 million annually, and the baby fund, $100 million. And I asked the question then, could our resources withstand the increased expenditure? It could not. But you all borrowed and borrowed and borrowed. And what you were borrowing to do? To spend on recurrent expenditure. Madam Speaker, I also heard about deficit financing. And you all know in this house, I always talk about deficit financing. I have no problems with deficit financing. It is used world over as a tool of recovery. However, once you have decided to do that, you need to have a planned exit strategy. How are we going to come out of that? And for 4 years, I stood in this parliament and spoke about it. I'm surprised now that people are so incensed about the Minister of Finance's deficit budgeted. But look and see what he has done between 2015 to now by reducing the expenditure. I mean, we have not achieved a balanced budget, but I can tell you he reduced the expenditure in light of the reduced revenue. Madam Speaker, the budget as presented provides hope to our citizens. It cannot be business as usual. The measures undertaken in this budget go across the board. Everyone, if you're a true patriot, is being called upon to put country first. We need to make certain sacrifices. I call, and especially on housewives and women across this country, from Picton, my constituency, down to Ikakas. I ask you all to become creative. It involves everyone. All of us must put our back to the wheel and work this thing through. I said last year again that tough times don't last, but tough people do. And we will get through this. We will get through this. With respect to the constituency, I have observed in the PSIP, and I thank the Minister of Education, that we'll be getting that new school. Construction will start of the Piccadilly EC School. I have submitted 25 roads to the Minister of Works and Transport, who went with me on a tour of the constituency. So I'm expecting something to be done there. Also, too, I'm eagerly awaiting word on the seafront project at Sealots. Yes, East Port of Spain development will be coming. And Madam Speaker, I want to close. I want to thank my constituents for the support, for affording me the opportunity to serve. As a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, I owe them a debt of gratitude for their support. Madam Speaker, with those few words, I thank you.
Leader of the House.
You are not. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to Wednesday, the 11th day of October 2017, at 10 a.m.
Honorable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn to Wednesday, the 11th of October 2017 at 10 a.m. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to Wednesday, the 11th October 2017 at 10 a.m.